What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. I'm once again joined by Tyler. We are back for another video in our Spider-Man Far From Home community series, and this has been a community series talking all about the film, talking about the future films in this Marvel Cinematic Universe, in this Spider-Man universe, and so we've been talking a lot about spoiler aspects of Far From Home and the future Spider-Man movie. So this video is going to contain some spoilers as to what happens at the end of Far From Home and where we think these movies are going to be heading. So if you guys don't want spoilers, turn away now, but we want to talk about the Sinister Six, and we want to talk about when we think they're going to get introduced into this world. Now, we had made a video a while ago, like 2 months ago. There was a leak, at the time, a supposed leak for Far From Home that turned out to be completely wrong. We made a video about it. We covered it. We talked about all the aspects and what it could mean for the future Spider-Man films, but it basically ended Far From Home at the end credit scene or mid-credit scene with the Sinister Six being introduced, and Tyler and I had talked all about that. Did they make the right choice? What could that mean for, Spider-Man 3, things like that? Turns out, that was a complete bust. That was not true. However, we got something pretty big at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home, obviously, with the world knowing that Peter Parker is now Spider-Man. Definitely an avenue to now introduce the Sinister Six, and while they aren't introduced in Spider-Man Far From Home, we're going to talk about when we believe they will be introduced. Now, originally, we thought 3 could very well be all about them, but Tyler, it seems like they have a lot to do now in 3, and we're going to be covering Miles Morales as well in the next video. We'll be talking about if that could potentially happen in 3, but they have a lot to deal with in 3, kind of, going over, getting through what they did at the end of Far From Home. So do you think they'd be able to do 2 things at once, and do you think that the Sinister Six, therefore, would kind of get pushed another movie maybe to the 4th Spider-Man film?
Yeah, there's no way they can do Sinister Six in the next film. There's way too much for them to cover. Because, like we said in I think it was 2 videos ago, with Norman Osborn, they have to introduce Norman Osborn in this 3rd film. If they don't, then it absolutely has to be the 4th film, because he's too big of a character to not have over multiple films. And you might be saying, well, why are you talking about Norman Osborn for the Sinister Six? Because he's probably the person who's going to fund that. Norman Osborn is probably going to be the person that funds the Sinister Six, because that takes a lot of money. Yeah, and how do you not have the Green Goblin in the Sinister Six? You just have to, especially now with the question of, do they do 2 versions of the Sinister Six, or do they only do the Sinister Six once? I think no, they only do it once. So if they do it once, it's going to have to be whatever lineup they want the first time. Could they be in more than one film? They could. They could be in the 4th and the 5th. But I just don't, or the 4th and the 6th. I just don't see them in the next film, because they're going to have to deal with, everybody knows Spider-Man's Peter Parker. How Peter Parker goes over, or deals with all of that, on top of the villain element, on top of eventually you're gonna, like I said, Norman Osborn, if that's in the next film. I think it is. Eventually you have to introduce Miles. That may be in that next film, which we think is called Spider-Man Graduation, and we have a video on that. So if Miles isn't, you could move some of the pieces. If Miles isn't in 3rd, maybe he's in the 4th. If Norman's not in the 3rd, maybe he's in the 4th, and Miles is in the 3rd. So there are definitely moving parts, obviously, and nothing's set in stone, because you might not know this, but Alex and I don't write these films. But in the 3rd film, though, they have so much stuff already, and on top of adding new elements, that I just don't see room to introduce 6 villains. I just don't. Even if you're reintroducing the Vulture, you're still introducing 5 new ones. So I just don't see it happening. Now, could it be set up at the end of the 3rd to be in the 4th? Yeah, that makes more sense. I think we might see them in the 4th film, if not the 5th and 6th film. But 100%, it's just not... I want to see it, but it's just not possible for them to be in the 3rd film. Because they have a lot of villains that they have to cover. It's totally possible that they do Kraven in the next film, because I know they want to use Kraven. Doc Ock has to be introduced at some point. Obviously, again, Norman Osborn Green Goblin has to be introduced. Likely going to be a Venom movie. Or not a Venom movie, but Venom in a Spider-Man film. They have to do Scorpion, or at least give Scorpion a suit. Prowler is going to be how they're introducing Miles. There's a number of villains. Maybe they even do Morbius, the vampire. That's totally possible too. There's Electro. I mean, there's a lot of villains that they have to cover to create a group in the first place. They can't do like a Suicide Squad style film where all of a sudden you just throw a bunch of, or even Justice League, where you just throw all these characters together and you don't know anything about any of them but one of them or two of them, and that's it. It doesn't work. On top of when there's other characters in the movie already that you have to deal with. So it wouldn't work. It would be a mess. So a lot of the characters already have to be established. At least half. So they have to establish them first. So we're going to have to get one or two villains in the next film. And then maybe in the fourth film, if we're lucky, we get one or two. Or maybe we do get the introduction of the Sinister Six. But there's just, I can't see any good way for them to be in the next film. But like Alex said, now that everybody knows that Spider-Man's Peter Parker, now you open up how the Sinister Six would target Spider-Man. Because Scorpion wanted to know from Vulture who he is, and Vulture didn't say. Well, now Vulture didn't have to say. Now Scorpion knows exactly who Spider-Man is. So, all the villains are going to know who he is, so now they get to look into his family and do all those type of things and try to target him that way. That's kind of classic why Spider-Man doesn't want people to know, which is why I think, like I said in a different video, the graduation video, why I think it only makes sense for Spider-Man to be stationed at the new Avengers base, because that's where he'd be safest. But obviously if they kidnap MJ or Ned or both or whatever, that would be a way for them to get Peter out of there. And that could happen in the third film, obviously. But I think that likely will happen in the fourth film, where it's going to be where Peter's like, I'd rather save my friends than be concerned about my own safety. He's going to put others before himself. And probably getting some pretty deep trouble, but I can see that happening. But again, they have to deal with all of the things as to, how Peter's dealing with everybody knows my secret and how he lives now. They're gonna have to deal with that. That's gonna take up so much time in the third film and be such a heavy part. There's just no way. In fact, it makes me feel like there's only gonna be one villain. That's it, not two or three. I think it'll be very much like Mysterio. It was kind of a one-villain film with Far From Home, and I think we're going to get that again. It's possible that we do get Kraven. Maybe somebody hires Kraven to hunt him down because he's kind of like a mercenary or like an assassin, and just in a different way, but that's possible, so maybe we'll see Kraven in the next film. But that's really all I can think of. So, in my opinion, no Sinister Six until at least, the very least, the fourth Spider-Man film.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the thing is, especially with that leak that again was supposedly supposed to happen, that the Sinister Six would be at the end, or that we thought would happen and that didn't. The thing with the Sinister Six in these films are, and to go off of Tyler's point, 100% agree. I feel like the next villain for Spider-Man 3, Spider-Man Graduation, whatever you want to call it, is going to be a single villain. It could just be one villain. Could be Kraven, could be Doc Ock, and we'll be talking about that in future videos. Could be Norman Osborn in the background, and could be hints at him becoming Green Goblin, which we talked about in the first video, and it could be hints of forming a Sinister Six. I feel like with a group like the Sinister Six, you can't just throw that at them. Imagine the first trailer for the next movie, and you just kind of introduce that, oh yeah, the villain of the third movie is the Sinister Six, just all of them. No explanation of how they got together, no explanation of how they're funded or, kind of what their plan is, just that they're now here and they're going after Spider-Man. That, for how good Marvel's done in writing these and thinking of a plan going to the future with these, that would make no sense. That would be very, very sloppy, and that would kind of be something that we would have seen from like mid mid to early 2000s kind of superhero films, where it just, it opens up and suddenly there's 6 villains going after the main character. That's something that you would have expected 20 years ago. But now where we are, you would expect a setup. You have to have kind of a meaning and a reason for why they're doing what they're doing. So if anything, not having them at the end of Far From Home, that sucks. And if anything, it stops them completely from being in the third movie. I don't think there's a chance at all that we're going to see them in this third film because, again, you kind of need to have an organic way of bringing them together. Now, they've kind of set it up. I mean, we had Vulture, we had Shocker, we know Prowler exists, we know all these things. Mysterio, who we thought could have been a member of the Sinister Six. We've had all these signs, but they've not, they haven't put it together. They don't have a leader. They don't have somebody that would actually bring them together. This third film, besides them figuring out besides Peter Parker literally figuring out how to live his life with the world knowing that he's Spider-Man, besides that, I feel like it's going to be a big setup movie. And it's going to be interesting because obviously you can't spend the whole movie just setting up the next one. You have to have something that makes it, very popular and very good in it itself. But I feel like that's what Norman's going to be doing. I feel like you'll see that descent into becoming Green Goblin as we're going on the main story, as we have a main villain, that's clearly defined as this main villain. I feel like that's how it's going to go, and then we can set up the Sinister Six. Maybe the after credits scene of the third film is the Sinister Six all together, because then the whole movie is about building them up and getting them together, or at least kind of like signs, or there's hints at it, and at the end of that movie, you get that they're all together, and then the fourth movie can actually be them coming together. But really, based off, and in my opinion, that's the way they have to do it. So going off of that, they're running out of films. They've eliminated 3 from even being a potential spot to have them in. And I feel like, to answer the question, like when the Sinister Six, when will they be introduced? It could happen at the very, very end of 3, the after credit scene of 3. But when they're going to be the official villain, I think just like Tyler said, at the earliest would be the 4th. And who knows? Maybe they're setting them up to be the final villain. So maybe they don't get introduced till the 5th movie, and then they're the 6th movie's main villain, or maybe they're the 5th movie's main villain, and then Green Goblin is 6. They can do it in different ways for sure, but especially because they lost a movie, I don't think they're even going to get introduced or become a main thing until the 4th movie. The question is, we talked a lot about it in a couple videos ago, talking about the Sinister Six, and we talked about maybe there'll be 2 versions. Maybe there'll be kind of like a B team one, and then a lot of them get, taken out, and then they have to replace them with really, the big villains that we know from their universe. They don't really, I don't know if they have enough time to do that. I don't know if they literally have enough movies unless 2 movies back-to-back are Sinister Six. So it's tough. It's really tough. It's going to be really interesting to see because we need them. This is obviously a very iconic group, no matter which members they choose to put in them, but very iconic group to Spider-Man. This is their one and only shot with, a character like Peter Parker and Spider-Man with Tom Holland being him. They have to nail it, and I think they will. It's just that, I'd rather have it sooner rather than later, and it seems like they're pushing it off just a little bit. But guys, let us know in the comments below when you think the Sinister Six is going to be introduced. Do you think it could be a end of the 3rd movie kind of thing? Do you think they wait until the 4th movie? What do you think, and who would the members of the Sinister Six be, in your opinion? Let us know. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, Podcast Now. Hit that bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up. And thank you, as always, for watching. We got more Spider-Man Far From Home videos coming up over the next couple days, and we hope to see you guys there.